Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to the Deep Dive.
Glad to be here.
Today we're plunging into, well, a really fascinating collection of recent news headlines and also some historical snapshots.
Yeah, it's quite a mix.
Our mission really is to distill the essence of all this information from Nigeria and beyond, give you a shortcut to being well-informed without, feeling overwhelmed.
Exactly. And the sources for this deep dive, they're a unique blend. We've got June 2025 newspaper headlines, some really intriguing did you know facts, and those important today in history moments.
Right.
We're not just listing things off. The idea is to connect the dots for you, help you see the bigger picture, and understand why these bits of information actually matter.
Absolutely. So let's kick things off. Let's look at some of the big national initiatives. President Tinubu's efforts, particularly to boost various sectors. We're seeing a big push in agriculture, for instance, the launch of the distribution of 2,000 tractors aimed at transforming the sector.
That's a significant number.
And also infrastructure. A 15-kilometer road just opened in Abuja. And there's praise specifically for FCT Minister Wyke's rural push, shows a focus on, well, local development.
And that focus on tangible development, it seems to be a theme. What's truly fascinating here is how diverse these efforts are.
Right.
You've got agricultural mechanization, like the tractors. Then there's energy decentralization. And even exploring the blue economy. It feels like a strategy to leverage Nigeria's internal capacity on multiple fronts.
So tell us more about the energy part, the Electricity Act.
Yeah, that's a big one. Tinubu's Electricity Act. It's a landmark reform, really. It shifts control of power generation, transmission, distribution, shifts it away from the federal government to the individual states.
Okay.
And this has already led to 7 states taking charge of their own power regulation. That's significant decentralization. The hope is, bringing power closer to the people, tailoring solutions locally, not just top-down.
Makes sense. And the blue economy.
Right. There's a drive to boost seabed mapping, exploring Nigeria's untapped marine resources, maritime potential. It's another angle on economic development.
Okay, so a lot happening on the development front. Let's shift then to the economic figures. Give us a sense of the financial landscape.
Okay.
We've seen the Naira appreciating, and 1,600 to the dollar in the parallel market. That's the unofficial rate, of course.
Which is quite a notable shift, perhaps, indicating growing confidence, or maybe just increased dollar supply in that informal sector. It's hard to pin down exactly.
And the targets are ambitious, too. The Senate raised the customs 2025 revenue target, and $10 trillion.
Wow, $10 trillion. That's huge.
And the federal government reported $6.9 trillion in revenue, just in the first 4 months of 2025.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, these figures, these ambitious targets, they really signify a concerted effort towards, well, robust economic growth, or at least aiming for it.
Right.
Look at the Nigerian Ports Authority, the NPA. They're targeting $1.28 trillion in revenue for 2025. That suggests optimism in trade and logistics.
And on the private sector side?
We're seeing activity there, too. Sterling Financial, for example, posted a N17.2 billion Q1 profit. Pretty healthy. And ING is planning to raise N6.5 billion through a rights issue.
Which is offering shares to existing shareholders, right?
Exactly, usually at a discount. It's a way to raise capital. So you put it all together, government revenue drives, corporate profits, capital raising it, paints a picture of, well, aiming for expansion and stability.
Okay, let's move into a more complex area now. Security challenges, government responses. It's quite varied, isn't it?
It really is. And complex.
The Chief Defense Staff, the CDS, made a powerful statement, saying poverty and hunger are major fuels for security threats. That points to root causes, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That's a really profound observation from the CDS. It makes you wonder, then, how much of this can be solved just by policing versus needing these broader economic and social fixes.
And we are seeing multi-pronged approaches from the police side, though.
Yes. The Inspector General of Police, the IGP, launched a schools protection squad in Osun. That's specific.
And also emphasized police impartiality in elections, trying to build trust, I suppose.
And they're looking at updating their methods, too. Plans to review training manuals, deploying drones to rescue those abducted passengers in Benue. That shows an adaptation using technology.
But the crime reports are still deeply concerning.
Very, and often interconnected.
Yeah.
You mentioned the Borno governor blaming the Kunduga bombing on drug markets.
A grim connection.
And the NDLEA seized, what was it, $777 million in drugs. Tragically, an Edo University student was among those held. It shows how pervasive these issues are.
Yeah, it reaches everywhere.
And then there's the call for accountability. The Reps Minority Caucus demanding a probe into that killing of travelers in Kaduna.
Right. And adding another layer, the U.S. issued a security advisory for Abuja.
Which the federal government pushed back against. That highlights the tension sometimes between internal security efforts and international perceptions. They don't always align.
Definitely a complex picture. So beyond the immediate security focus, what about broader governance issues, political conversations?
Well, on the regional level, ECOWAS, the Economic Community of West African States, is facing challenges.
What kind of challenges?
They're lamenting member states' unwillingness to actually enforce court judgments from the ECOWAS court. That's a real hurdle for regional integration for the rule of law across West Africa,
Yep, if judgments aren't enforced.
This raises an important question, really, about the effectiveness of these regional bodies if members don't fully buy in or comply. But on a more, perhaps, positive note for continental collaboration, you had the African Union MSMEs Forum. That's micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises.
Right.
And Vice President Shasima was there, urging the integration of Africa's informal economy, recognizing its huge potential, really, for jobs and reducing poverty.
That's a big, often overlooked sector.
Absolutely. And you also had the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, SGF Akume, rallying Africa to lead on climate and infrastructure, kind of taking charge of the continent's own development story.
Interesting push there. But the domestic political scene seems quite lively.
Oh, definitely. Lots of statements flying around. El Rufai, for instance, claimed President Tinubu's cabinet lacks quality. That's a strong critique from a prominent figure.
And then an APC chieftain advising Nigerians to hold governors accountable, not just the president, shifting the focus, perhaps?
Exactly. It suggests a sort of struggle over narrative and where responsibility lies. And you see other dynamics, too. Baba Ahmed calling the ADA coalition uninspiring, self-serving, shows internal disagreements.
But then you have others showing strong support.
Right. Okpebholo promising 2.5 million votes for Tinubu in 2027. And Algen, the Association of Local Governments, denying they supported Wamako as Tinubu's running mate.
So a real mix of critique, advice, internal politics, and pledges of support.
Precisely. It highlights the diverse perspectives, the ongoing debates about accountability, future leadership, all playing out very publicly.
Okay, let's shift gears again. Let's talk about the social fabric, local life, things that really hit home for people.
Right, the everyday impacts.
We're seeing some, difficult stories. Nigerians in China protesting what they call very appalling acts by fellow citizens. That's a tough look at the diaspora experience.
It really is. Issues of representation, behavior abroad, it's complex.
And domestically, some truly unexpected headlines, like a man arrested in Lagos for converting his home into an abattoir.
Yeah, I saw that one. It's striking.
It really makes you think about urban planning challenges, public health enforcement, the sheer diversity of issues officials face.
Absolutely. And it touches on informal economies, too, and how they operate in these huge, rapidly growing cities. It's a massive challenge.
And on the humanitarian side, we see efforts and needs. The First Lady seeking legislative support for her projects.
And Saludo's wife speaking out against the sociocultural harms widows face, pointing to those deep-seated societal issues that still need tackling.
Very important, but also stark realities, like the conditions in a Benue IDP camp, reporting 15 births, 122 pregnancies.
That's just heartbreaking. It underscores the immense ongoing challenges for displaced populations. Basic needs, healthcare, safety.
Yeah, but there are positive developments locally, too. In Sokoto, they unveiled a 3 million-gallon water plant.
That's significant infrastructure.
Yeah.
Water access is critical.
And an N698.4 million digital land information center, modernizing record-keeping, aiming for transparency.
Which can make a real difference for residents dealing with land issues.
However, there are trade-offs with policy sometimes. The Lagos plastic ban, for example, expected to displace 89% of operators.
That's a huge economic impact, particularly for small businesses, people reliant on that trade. Environmental goals versus economic reality. It's a tough balance.
But Governor Sanwo-Olu is also active on the industry front, opening a safety footwear factory, unveiling market advisory council members.
So trying to boost local manufacturing, improve how markets are managed, it's a mix of challenges and initiatives.
And just quickly, from the judiciary, judge's vacation starts July 21st. And a UK court reserved judgment in that big Shell oil spill case, $55 million.
Right. Reminds us that legal battles, especially environmental ones involving major corporations, can have a very long reach and timeline.
Definitely. Okay, let's turn to education. What's happening there?
Well, some positive collaborations. OS Tech, that's the Olusegun Agagu University of Science and Technology, is partnering with a South African university.
On what specifically?
Agricultural studies.
Yeah.
Which is great, right? Cross-border research in a really vital sector for Nigeria and Africa.
Good to see. And academic achievements, too.
Yes. Uniloran's law faculty, University of Ilorin, is leading the nation in the number of PhD holders. That's a real marker of academic excellence and deep legal scholarship.
That's impressive. But the sector isn't without its problems, sadly.
No, unfortunately not. We see issues like exam malpractice. Kogi Poly withdrew 273 students and expelled 6 over it. Shows it's an ongoing struggle for academic integrity.
And more seriously, safety concerns. Protests at Niger Varsity over a student's killing.
Yeah. And an Ondo Poly student confirmed dead. These are tragic events that really underscore how vital safety and security are on campus. It affects everything.
Absolutely essential. On a brighter note, though.
A brighter note.
Yeah.
NICTM, the Nigerian Institute of Computer Technology and Management, won a NANAS Interschool Quiz in Edo. Nice to see student achievement celebrated.
Definitely. Okay, let's broaden the view now. International relations. Some quite surprising headlines here.
Yeah, things seem volatile, perhaps.
We've got Putin condemning U.S. strikes on Iran, pledging support to Iran.
Right. Then, almost in the next breath, you hear Trump saying Israel and Iran have agreed to a total ceasefire.
Which seems contradictory, or at least a very different narrative.
Here's where it gets really interesting, isn't it? And then Qatar reopens its airspace after an alleged Iran attack on a U.S. base there.
So what do we make of all that?
Well, it just illustrates the incredibly complex, often conflicting narratives in global geopolitics. Yeah. Things change fast. Different actors, different sources present very different pictures of critical events. It's that delicate dance of diplomacy, information, and conflict playing out.
A very tangled web. And closer to home, just briefly, Nigeria's standing in sports and military.
Quick updates there, yeah. The Super Falcons, the women's football team, held Portugal to a 0-0 draw in a friendly, showing their competitiveness.
Good result against a strong team.
And militarily, Nigeria ranked 3rd in Africa's Military Strength Index for 2025. That highlights its significant defense capability within the continent.
So a strong presence both athletically and militarily in Africa.
Exactly. It gives you a snapshot of Nigeria's standing in those specific global and regional contexts.
You know, as we were digging through all this, I found a couple of really intriguing tidbits, almost did-you-know facts. Had to share them.
Oh, yeah. Go on.
First, the Rosicrucian Order, AMORC. Ever heard of it?
Vaguely. Philosophical group, right?
Exactly. Worldwide educational philosophical organization. But get this. They trace their roots back to ancient Egyptian mystery schools, around 1500 BCE.
Wow, 1500 BCE, that's ancient.
Right. Founded in its modern form in 1915 by Hardy Spencer Lewis, focuses on personal, spiritual development, practical mysticism.
Fascinating that something with such ancient roots persists today.
Isn't it? And another one, completely different, Scrabble.
Ah, I love Scrabble.
Invented by an unemployed American architect, Alfred Moscherbutz, back in 1938, during the Depression, I guess.
Really? An architect?
Yep. First called Lexica, then Crisscross Words. Didn't really take off until James Rideau redesigned it and renamed it Scrabble in 1948.
Huh. So it wasn't an instant hit. Took some tweaking. Amazing how everyday things have these unexpected origin stories.
Totally. Born out of necessity or curiosity.
It really makes you think. These ancient philosophical roots, humble beginnings of board games. History is everywhere.
And speaking of history, the Today in History section had some sobering moments for June 24th.
Yeah, some tragic events.
On June 24th, 1956, a British Overseas Airways Corporation plane, BOAC, crashed right after takeoff from Kano Airport here in Nigeria, hit a tree, 32 people died.
Oh, terrible. Right here in Kano.
And then June 24th, 2002, Africa's worst ever train disaster. In Tanzania.
Near Misigali. I remember hearing about that.
That's the one. A passenger train, packed maybe 1,200 people, rolled backward down a hill after its brakes failed. 281 people killed.
Just horrific. Brake failure.
These events, these historical tragedies, they really stick with you, don't they?
They do. They underscore the ongoing importance of safety, regulations, maintenance, that human element in preventing disaster. They're tough reminders, but vital for learning from the past.
It reminds me of that Ambrose Bierce quote.
Which one's that?
God alone knows the future, but only an historian can alter the past.
That's powerful. And it fits, doesn't it? How we interpret the past, how we tell its story, shapes how we understand it, and maybe how we approach the future.
Yeah. Our deep dive today, it's kind of like being historians in a small way, trying to understand, connect the dots.
Exactly. Interpreting the information we have from the past and the present.
So what does this all mean? We've covered such a huge range today.
We really have.
National development, tractors, roads, electricity, economic figures, the Nayara, revenue targets.
Yeah.
Complex security issues, poverty, policing, international advice.
Governance debates, regional challenges, political statements.
Social stories, diaspora issues, urban oddities, humanitarian needs, local projects, plastic bans.
Education partnerships and problems. Global politics, Putin, Trump, Iran. Sports, military rankings.
And ancient societies, board games, historical tragedies. It's a lot.
It is. But that's the real value, I think, of doing a deep dive like this.
How so?
By pulling together all these seemingly disparate pieces, you start to see the connections. You get a richer, more nuanced understanding than just reading headlines one by one.
Right. It helps make sense of the complexity.
Exactly. You see how economic policy might relate to social issues, how international events echo locally, how history informs the present. It offers clarity, hopefully, without feeling quite so overwhelming.
Indeed. So maybe a final thought for you, our listener, to consider as you go about your day. Think about how this snapshot, just from June 2025, illustrates this dynamic, ongoing story of a nation and indeed the world. Every headline, every number, every historical echo we touched on, it's all part of the fabric.
It all contributes.
It all contributes to history as it unfolds. Maybe appreciating that interplay helps us understand how the future gets shaped day by day.
A great point to end on.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We really encourage you to keep asking questions, stay curious, and continue your own journey of discovery.